So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor, and as always, so grateful to be here on this beautiful, sunny Scottsdale, Arizona day. I got to give you my Scottsdale, Arizona update because pretty soon it's going to be, holy hell, it's way too hot here. But let's just enjoy it while it lasts. Hey, so happy to be here as always. Have some fun stuff going on in the personal life. Thought I'd share a little bit about that and then also how it pertains to kind of what we do here in this kind of tight half hour on the Unlicensed Counselor. Look, I try to get right to it. I want to talk about stuff that's going on in my life, stuff that I feel like is going on in current events, topics that may apply to you, and I want to get to it, and I don't want to kind of go too long. I mean, these are meant to be digestible while you're driving in your car, doing a workout, that kind of thing. So hopefully, if you find some value in this, go ahead, share it with a friend. Costs you nothing, helps a growing podcast like this back. And by the way, Robin, I did just get the numbers back from our studio here. We are growing, right? Yeah, we are growing. Sometimes I even surprise myself, ourselves, because this is a team effort here. But it is really neat to see that I guess some people want to listen to what we're talking about here. So that's pretty neat. And a big thank you to everybody that continues to listen and share this out with your friends as well, too. So thanks. It's been a lot of fun. And by the way, I think this is like episode 62, I want to say, something like that now. I mean, it's not like we just started doing this last week. I tell people are doing a podcast, and sometimes you get the eye roll, and I'm like, no. Like, we're not just wading into this thing. Like, this has been something that we've been working on and building for the last year plus now, and so it's pretty cool to see. So anyways, enough about the Unlicensed Counselor podcast. I'm just grateful that you're along with this journey. Today I want to talk about competition, right? I think there's some really good stuff and some important stuff in competition. Maybe some things, I won't even say bad, but to be aware of, and maybe some times to shy away from being too overly competitive. Right, so it's been on my mind, as I share oftentimes, I'm active in sports and lifting and running and things like that. Right now, I'm in a basketball league. We got our championship game tonight. I'm fired up. My team's fired up. And it's really cool to see how, some of these team sports can kind of bring people together. We're on a text chain. It's fun. Guys get pumped up. Gives you something to look forward to in the morning. And I'll report back next week if we're able to bring home the trophy. Maybe I'll actually post a little picture of the trophy on the old social accounts. Maybe bring it in here. It's a big old honking thing too. So I've had competition on my mind, and I thought it might be a fun one to kind of discuss a little bit today. So before we do that, as always, I want to say thank you to our friends over at ShareTech. Look, go to betterdrugtest.com. If you need to pick up one of these at-home drug or alcohol screens, you know what to do if you've listened to this podcast. It is the leading at-home drug or alcohol screen. It's performed by a lab. It is the most comprehensive, and it tells you the levels of any substance that individual has been using as well, too. Go to betterdrugtest.com. Pick that test up. If you're in need of one of these at-home tests, not one of the cheapy Amazon, Walgreens, peanut cup type things. Next up, I want to say, give us a follow on the youth drug abuse, the nonprofit work that I'm involved in. Really important stuff. This is youth drug abuse prevention messaging. What we do is focus solely on social media messaging to your kids. We want to prevent them from ever having to start using drugs at all. Look, the only way that I know as a person in long-term recovery from drug and alcohol addiction that I know that you can ever not have a problem with this is to never start. So that's our message. We're doing that via social media, not your kind of 1 hour assembly and then hope that message resonates with them. We're going to saturate social media with this youth drug prevention. Give us a follow at Hard Stop and check us out at thestopstartshere.org. And hey, look, go to my the Unlicensed Counselor stuff as well, too. Give us a follow on all the usual stuff. YouTube, I think we're up to 14, 15 people. Woo, lighting the world on fire. But hey, it's a slow burn. I'm just grateful to those folks that start following. You can start nudging those numbers up. I'd sure appreciate it as well, too. And actually, we post clips from the show and chop it up and all that kind of fun stuff. So slowly but surely. Okay, so competition, right? I'm one of these people where it's kind of wired in me of just that competitive thing, right? I can see it in my dad. It's funny, how it kind of lands in certain family members and things like that. And to me, it kind of comes naturally, and to the point where I may even be overly competitive, and I think there are some downsides that I'll touch on to that as well too. But in general, I find that it serves me pretty well, whether that's in business, certainly in the sports front. I do run into some challenges on the relationship front, or maybe in some social circles if you kind of bring that competitive thing into it. So that's all stuff that I want to touch on as to kind of why competition is beneficial. But really, it's an important kind of motivator. It's a driver of improvement. And this can be for both your personal and professional life. It encourages innovation, it encourages efficiency, and kind of continuous learning. And I think it's really important to continue even as we age as well, too, to kind of give you something, that internal fire that helps drive you every day. So just something to think about that. I know oftentimes maybe you played high school sports or youth sports or intramurals and things like that. I think it's important to stay engaged with that type of stuff. And maybe it's just a competition within yourself or maybe a close friend or something like that. You know, even if it's just, hey, I want to beat my personal number of steps that I take in a day because they've got the step counters and different things like that. You know, I think it's important just to have a goal that's out there. And even if it's just competing with yourself, because it kind of gets you up and gets you moving, right? So let's talk about it. Why competition is beneficial. So the number one thing I had is kind of innovation and improvement, right? And I'll reference sports a lot because that's really what's been on my mind lately. But this applies in the business world as well too. You know, I think so. Competition encourages individuals and organizations to kind of push their limits, to innovate, to find new ways to excel. And I think that's an important thing. I think that's why in the business world, you get all these outstanding new companies and startups that kind of grow, and they see somebody doing this, and what if we try and do it this way? And it just kind of pushes people. And ultimately, we as consumers end up reaping the benefits of that because so many of these organizations are competitive. And I think that's a super healthy kind of ecosystem for us to have. Same thing applies to sports as well, too. You know, number two on the why it's beneficial side is the skill development, right? So it drives people to acquire these new skills or refine ones to stay ahead of your peers or of your competitors as well, too. You know, I think that's why I go shoot around at the gym or lift some weights or run the extra miles. Shoot, as a 44-year-old guy now, you know, I'm playing with 20, 30-year-olds. You know, I have to put in a little extra work to make sure that I can keep up with these guys who could probably run circles around me if I wasn't putting in all these things. So that competition forces me to kind of make sure that I'm improving, that I'm getting better as well, too, just so I can keep up with these guys. So it's that kind of push, that drive, that developing those new skills that really helps. So number three is goal setting and achievement, right? So competitive settings really help people get clear goals and work more diligently towards achieving them, right? You know, we want to win the championship tonight. And it's actually it's a City of Scottsdale men's league. You know, it's actually a fairly decent sized trophy. And I've been playing in this league for years. And I think this is the best team that I've ever put together, right? So the goal is to go out and win this championship. And look, we've had to, you know, kind of break up teams, kind of put some new people in and try and find the right mix of players. I mean, the goal is to win the championship. And this competition is forcing us to do so. And what we found is that we're doing, you know, knock on wood, so well this season that we're actually moving up a division, which, as the oldest guy on the team and maybe the oldest guy in the league, you know, I'm not exactly thrilled about, but it's like, well, hey, we're good. We've got people. We've set the goals that are out there. Let's go out and win this division, and then we're going to move it up to the next division and see if we can knock it out of the park there as well, too. Which dovetails nicely into the last beneficial point is resilience and determination, right? So facing competition builds resilience in individuals, and it can learn to kind of cope with challenges and setbacks. Again, personal and professional and sports. You know, I just think it's really important that I've lost in this league numerous times, and it's like, all right, well, what do we need to do? Well, we probably need to go out and recruit a little bit better players. We maybe need a little bit more organized on the team. What did we do wrong last season? What could we do better this season? And we take that, we learn, and now we're back and we're darn good, right? We're darn good. Same thing applies into the business world or even in your personal life as well, too. You know, if you're facing, you know, these challenges and you're finding a way to overcome them, through this competitive spirit, I think that it's going to build, more character, more substance. You're going to learn how to lose, but you're going to learn how to bounce back from that stuff as well. And, my daughter plays soccer, if you want to call it soccer. She's 4 years old, right? We had our last game this weekend. And you can see, even at that age, the differences in some of the kids and how they kind of approach it. I'm not trying to overread into it, although she's averaging probably 10 goals a game, pretty neat. Yeah, I heard that laugh back in the back room, but that's a true statement. But then there's other kids, and this is a co-ed league too, so it's boys and girls, and it's like some kids just kind of naturally gravitate towards that, and some don't. Some don't get the ball, and they kind of pout or run off to the side or cry and things like that. So, and some parents want to kind of scoop their kids up and take them off the side. That's fine. I'm not passing judgment on that. But I think that it's great that when she's out there and she gets knocked over and, finds a way to get up and kind of looks over at me and I'm giving her the thumbs up and just telling her you're going to be okay and get up. That type of stuff, being in those competitive environments, getting knocked down, whether it's physically or, if physically knocked down or maybe it's emotionally or whatever, I think that stuff is good for you and helps kind of build you up, create more character, more substance, and kind of teach you things as you go. So, anyways, I didn't mean to go off on my daughter's 4-year-old soccer league, but it is a really interesting kind of snapshot when you look at that and go, oh, wow. You can see these things at 4 years old kind of bubbling up out of people and their little personality. So, it's just kind of interesting to reflect on. Okay. Now, let's say I hate to get into the differences between men and women and things like that, but I do think that there is some differences. I'm not going to paint everybody with all these differences, but I do think between men and women, we do approach things a little bit differently as it comes to competition. I was in a yoga class, and the yoga teacher, she was kind of talking about how she kind of gives up on competition. And not in the yoga sense, but she was kind of making jokes of like, when I play pickleball, I'm not very competitive, and my partner gets very frustrated with me. I'm going to be like, yeah. I mean, I am for the yoga Zen world of like, hey, let's, we're in a yoga class together. We're not trying to compete, although I do enjoy trying to make sure that my poses are better, that I am a little competitive, right? But that's probably not the right thing to be doing. But that's just me, because some things you're just wired to. And I respect where she was going with that from the sense of like, I'm not really competitive, but it's like, well, maybe a little competitive there would help you with your partner to kind of let them get going. So that kind of got me thinking on this differences between, men and women. And I think the number one difference potentially could be kind of risk-taking, right? So men are often kind of more willing to engage in competitions that involve higher risks, right? Again, you can at me or write me, Steve at the Unlicensed Counselor, if you want to disagree with this, like, go crazy. But sometimes women may be a little more risk-averse, which might influence their participation in some of these high competitive environments. Maybe, right? That's just some of my experience that I've seen out there in my lived experience, right? Now, I also think that sometimes the men may have a little higher confidence in some of these competitive settings, which maybe they enter competitions a little bit differently because of that. Just again, some observations, not saying right or wrong. I've just seen this, right? I do think that there are differences between men and women. I know that's not necessarily a popular thing to be saying in the world right now. It's all right. Go at me. Don't really care. I think it's true, right? I mean, I'm not saying these things because I've lived in a world and I've seen these things experienced firsthand, right? And I do think that there's sometimes a preference in kind of the team and the competition, right? So women might prefer or perform better in team-based settings, right? And valuing collaboration over necessarily the individual thing. I see this a lot in the softball and volleyball teams, as well too. I mean, they crush it in this. Again, not painting everyone in the same brush, but there's some differences that I've seen in kind of the individual versus the team stuff. Just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about competition, right? So, and then the last thing I had, and potentially in some of the differences, again, that at least I've seen, is that women may focus more on mastery and like the personal best, whereas men might focus on winning and beating that other person, right? Call it wiring, call it what it is, but I'm just suggesting that I've seen some of these things in my personal life. And as you view competition with yourself, with your son or your daughter, with your husband or wife, some things to keep in mind as we're kind of looking at competition and how it can be beneficial, but also understanding that there might be some differences between men and women. Shocking, I know. Okay, next topic I wanted to cover within the competition sphere is, staying competitive, especially as you age, right? I think I see a lot of people, and in my family it was very competitive and still is for the most part, but you do see it start to fade a little bit, except maybe in golf. Golf in my family, and that's probably where I'm the worst at, just because it takes a lot of time and effort, and I don't have a lot of time and effort to put in on it can be boring. I chalk it up a little bit more because I'm not as good at it as the other things that I'm used to being good at stuff, so I get frustrated. But you get a couple country club memberships, I think I can help you find the time to do this. I don't have that yet, but hopefully I will one of these days. But some things that struck me as I'm thinking about competition. So I think it can help you stay mentally sharp, right? So engaging in competition can kind of keep that mind alert, which is crucial, I think, as you age. It's so easy to just kind of check out. My 80-some-year-old grandma, this is true, she joined a bowling league. Is it the most active thing in the world? No, but it's pretty darn good, chucking that bowling ball down there, and she loves it. I get pictures from my uncle who goes out with her. They got matching bowling shirts. She's in a league. She texts me her score. Like, she's beating people of her own. Like, that's awesome. Like, what a great example of kind of finding a way to stay competitive as you age. And I think that's super cool, which dovetails into number 2 is just the physical health, right? For older adults, competitive sports or activities can encourage kind of that physical activity, which is vital for maintaining your strength, your flexibility, and your overall health, right? So just finding a way to, make sure that your physical health is good by staying competitive, right? And you see these people. I'm not saying you got to be the 102-year-old dude running the 100-yard dash. I see that stuff, and it's like, okay, like we get it. Although that may be me, so I shouldn't probably throw too many stones. Be like, yeah, I'd probably be elbowing the guy next to me, in his rocker. But I may take it a little bit too far. But the next point I had, and kind of why competition is important as we age, is kind of the social connections, right? Just like my grandma's bowling league, I think it's as much a social thing as it is kind of the competition thing, which is awesome. And they probably sit around and eat some food or drink beer. I don't know. I haven't gone out there and done it. She lives in North Carolina, so I can't do it, or else I would. But I think it can combat loneliness. And depression as you age is a thing, right? I don't think that's a surprising thing that's out there to anyone. And so kind of combining that competition, now you're in the social element, now you're kind of pushing off that loneliness and isolation thing as well, too. Because you do hear, and I read a lot of stories about kind of the untalked about, epidemic in this country is isolation and loneliness, really, right? So what a good way. You get competitive, you join a league, right? Or join some type of thing, and now you've got some competition and you got some social interaction as well too. And then the last thing on that point is kind of the sense of purpose that goes along with competition as well too. So it can provide you that purpose, that motivation, right, which is essential for maintaining a high quality life as you age. I mean, I think a lot of people, start to go to family and church and things like that, and I absolutely agree with those things, but I'd also find some other kind of things to, complement those as well, too, and that's where I think competition can really help give you some purpose as you age a little bit, too. And I know a lot of guys do this in golf, because it's something that you can kind of play forever. It gets you out, you're walking, you're swinging, there's mild physical activity, but you do get that. So find whatever it is for you and kind of, jump into that and continue to do it. Don't just kind of write it off as something that you used to do when you were younger. Find a way to continue doing that thing, whether it's running, walking, hiking, biking, golfing, find something and just kind of stick with it. Okay, so next up on the list is I like competition. I think it's really healthy, obviously. But let's talk about when to be competitive and maybe when not to be competitive as well, too. Because I do think there's some times where being competitive has gotten me into trouble, right? Trouble may be not the right word, but it's like, you probably didn't need to go there. You probably could have dialed it back a little bit there, Steve, and saved yourself that argument, that fight, or that whatever. So good times to be competitive. How about in the workplace, right? Competing for a promotion, you're creating a new project or a product, and you want to get some professional growth going, right? Like demonstrate your capabilities or commitment. Like that's a good time to kind of go. You want to kind of beat out the next guy, get that next step in the ladder. Like those are healthy things, right? It's okay to want to achieve that and feel competitive. I think that's a great use of kind of that competitive spirits, right? Obviously, number 2 is on sports. I mean, I thrive on that. I just find enjoyment, and that's, I've talked about basketball, but I love running races too. I love trying to place in my age group. I know that I'm not going to win the race, but they have age groups, right? And as you get older, you keep moving up and you kind of compete against peers and yourself. I like to run as fast as I can, but I want to see if I can, hopefully beat a lot of the people that are of my own age. So obviously sports and athletics is a really good place to kind of be competitive, strive to win, improve your physical, mental toughness, right? I think that's all really good stuff. I think another area is in academics as well, too. So, if you're competing for scholarships or academic awards or science fairs, students can kind of push themselves to achieve. This one wasn't really up my alley, hence the unlicensed counselor. I didn't finish the graduate school. Well, I finished the education. I didn't finish the practicum part of this thing. But I think it can be really healthy, as a way to kind of push yourself. And you can get into some of these great schools. Although, maybe that's a topic for next week or something. Some of these elite universities and what's going on in those worlds right now. But look, in terms of education and academic, I think it's a great way to kind of apply a competitive spirit as well too, right? And then last but not least, in kind of the business markets, in the business world. So companies need to compete, to innovate, create better products, right? And services to capture more of the market share or meet consumer needs more effectively. Like that is good. I wish that they would break up some of these kind of monopolies or duopolies that exist out there in the world so we can create more competition, right? Ultimately, we as the consumers get the benefits of those things. So I think it's really cool when you get you have Uber and Lyft and kind of pushing it. Now you got Tesla coming in from the side and maybe they're going to have their own ride sharing thing. Ultimately, we end up with these better products and better services and usually at better price points as well, too. So I'd love to see some new phones kind of break into the market besides just Apple and Google as well, too. That would be a fun one to see. Maybe I'll tag Elon in this and see if he can come up with something to solve that. So, last but not least on the competition thing, here's some areas where you might not want to be competitive, right? And these are ones that I probably could have used a little dust up that would have saved me some stress over the years. During some team collaborations, right? When the goal is to work together to achieve a common goal or objective, being overly competitive can kind of be counterproductive or it can undermine kind of the team cohesion as well, too. If you're working on something that's supposed to be a collective effort, if you're just trying to kind of do this and be the best, that's going to frustrate some people and probably create some dynamics that aren't great, right? So something to keep in mind if you're working in kind of close group settings and things like that as well, too. Here's one that definitely I could have used a lot of work on is in those personal relationships, right? So competing with friends or family over lifestyle choices, achievements, or personal milestones can strain some relationships, right? It's usually more beneficial to just be supportive and cooperative and not try and be so competitive in some of these personal relationships. I just think whether it's family or friends, somebody's always got more, somebody's got to be less, somebody's going to have less. Let's not kind of get into those competitions with our friends. Let's see if we can check some of that at the door so that we don't kind of feel like we're always having to one-up one. I just don't think that's healthy. I think friends should just be friends and not feel like we're trying to kind of, get at each other or who has more or who went on this trip or who's earning more or their family's doing I just don't think that's really healthy family dynamics, right? So here's another one in social settings, right? And look, say what you want about Scottsdale, Arizona, but we get kind of a bad rap out here sometimes about, affluence, lifestyle, and things like that. And a lot of that is around kind of the social settings and the nightlife and golf and resorts and all that kind of stuff that kind of goes on around here. I understand that. It's earned to a degree. But I think social gatherings are typically about bonding and relaxation. Let's not try and make it about what trip you're going on, what car, how much you're earning. I think these kinds of conversations can make people uncomfortable, right? I know that they do. I think the bragging, the kind of flashiness and, that type of thing, it's just not a good look. It's unbecoming. Let's just think about, how that may be coming across to the other person as well, too. So kind of being in that competitive sense in those social settings, I don't think that's a good way to go. I may want to just try and be a little more conscious about that when you get engaged in some of these conversations as well, too. And what you'll find, if you're kind of conscious of that and somebody is kind of going off around this, that, and the other thing that they have, it's like, oof, boy. It's not, I don't know, it kind of gives me the ick, right? Where I'm just like, all right, we got it. We got it. Last but not least, on kind of times when not to be competitive is when you're learning a new skill, right? So when you're starting a new skill or hobby, focus on the learning rather than trying to compete. You're going to learn it better. You're going to be more pleasant. It's going to be more enjoyable. It's going to be a more fulfilling experience. If you're trying to learn something and feel like I need to know this better than the other, take a breath, relax. Don't worry about whatever. This one that came to mind for me was yoga. I had zero idea what I was doing when I walked into that hot yoga class for the first time. I just sat in the back of the room and I was like, okay, I'm just going to walk. And they say all these things, and I just stood in the back there. And, I want to, the wiring in me wants to do it and kind of get it right and show that I know what I'm doing and all these things. But it's like, no, man, let it go. Let alone this is yoga. So that kind of goes against some of the principles of kind of the spiritual, mental kind of side of this thing. But you're here to learn something. Enjoy it. Enjoy the experience, relax. Don't get caught up in trying to nail that pose that person has been doing this for 20 years. So just let it go. So look, I've had competition on the mind. I enjoy it. I think it's really important. I find that it's helped me in my own personal life, significantly. But look, there's good times and bad times to be competitive. There's ways guys approach things and ways girls approach things. Ultimately, I think it's important to stay competitive over your life, even in just small ways. They don't have to be huge competitive goals, but find a way in your own life to kind of encourage some competition, whether it's big or small. I think it's great to find some type of physical outlet for a little bit of competition as well, too, for all the reasons that we mentioned. So hopefully you got a little something out of this. I think it's really a fun topic, and I'll let you know if we win our game tonight next week. My name is Steve Moak, and I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Till next time, thank you very much.